the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry. We have found ways to build connection and community, even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Welcome, beloveds. We are so glad that you are here, friends. Hello, hello. Yay! We're here together again for another episode of The View from the Church of the Larger Fellowship. I am Cristina Rivera, she, her pronouns. I am 1/3 of the co-lead ministry team here at the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and I am coming to you from a ridiculously cold, why the hell am I here? I'm only here for 3 more days, Central Virginia. I came out to do, as many of you know, I live in Puerto Rico, but also my husband lives in Virginia, so we go back and forth. And I came to do a pastoral presence training on Monday, MLK Day, and the day of the inauguration. Came from PR. Sorry, my Cocoa Bear just decided to set off the alarm that she's not supposed to be playing with.
Oh, that's funny.
She's like, oh, what's going on? And anyway, so I came to do the pastoral presence training on Monday, MLK Day and Inauguration Day, because we've got to represent, and we got snowed out. So literally came all the way from PR to be in 2-degree weather to then pivot and do it online. So yeah, that is the weather here. There's snow outside. It's like 2 degrees. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I protest. I would like my time back. I'm reclaiming my time and I'm reclaiming my weather. This is DC. How's it going?
It's cold here too. Hi everybody. I'm Reverend DC Fortune, he him pronouns. I am coming to you from the shores of Penns Creek in Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania, where it is approximately like 5 degrees. It's disgusting and I'm offended and my skin is dry and my everything's cold. Everything's cold and I don't like it. And the snow, when you go outside, it's that squeak that you only get when it's really cold and dry and the snow goes squeak, squeak, squeak. It's like biting into a milk duds. You know, it's that same kind of squeak on you, right? Like it just goes through your fillings and you're like, oh man, this is bad. Yeah. But you know, I mean, aside from that, like the cats have found sunny spots on the floor to lay in, so yay for them. I am gonna take up residence on one of my steam radiators, though.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. I'm just grumbling about it. Like it's it's January. This shit happens. If this shit happened in July, okay, we could get alarmed. But it's what it does. I just don't like it. Aisha, how are things out there on the left coast?
Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser. I'm in Seattle, Washington, land of the Coast Salish people. It's cold here for Seattle. Like I think it's in the 30s, and we're not, and it's frosty. And my dog Gracie is like a skinny cow and over 70 pounds. Like I got to be super careful walking her because I have slipped. I've gone unintentionally ice skating. And I don't ice skate. That's not a thing that happens. So yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And I'm grumpy too. I used to live on the East Coast, the Northeast. So I'm used to subs and I've lived in North Dakota, but I'm not used to it anymore. So I was hoping to live vicariously through Chris. And then Chris, you tell us you're in 70, 80-degree weather, but you are not. You are in single digits. So I now have the balmy weather here in Seattle. It is not balmy, but and it's January. We have a lot to talk about. I think we can. I don't know, wherever we want to start. What do you all? I mean, yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we had the inauguration of
The Nazi.
The person who is now going to be with us for 4 years or so, and that was hard, folks. I saw it on my Facebook. I saw it on in my Signal threads. I saw it in all the places. It was a rough few days, and it also felt just so surreal that it was on MLK Day. Like it was the worst of I mean, it just felt gross. It's just like, oh my God, I cannot believe, like, this is just, I don't even know what to say. And so, it felt good to gather together in community. And, here in Charlottesville, which is where I organize, we gather together folks of faith who want to kind of up their understanding of what our responsibility is as people of faith. So this was folks from, there were Mennonites and UUs and Muslims and Jewish folks, and who else do we have? Where we had some agnostics in the group. I mean, there was a lot of different faith theologies in the room, all of which agreed that their faith calls them to action and calls them to resist and calls them to learn how to do pastoral presence in ways that take direction from the impacted communities, the targeted communities. So that was a really beautiful thing to see.
And somebody remind me the bishop's name who spoke directly.
Budde. Budde.
Budde. Nicole, Mary Buddy Bishop. She was
Um,
an Episcopal. What I so you know, she was speaking directly to Donald Trump. Did the Daily Show did a skit like, imagine you go to Sunday service and literally the entire sermon is just directed to you. And it really, while she was speaking to him, she was really talking to his supporters, like she was talking to us, because he doesn't care. I mean, we have to let go of emotion. Wasn't moved. He said something nasty about it after. So it's important that what I appreciated about it, that she did it, because it still took, some
yeah, it did.
serious and strong ovaries, because I no longer use, we are gonna center who she is and support who she is. That is not, because strength is not only male, because that's what we've been conditioned into, right? Strength is all genders.
Right.
She's reminding all of us that we all need to lean into the better parts of who we are as human. And one of the things I want to invite people, implore, I've been doing this the last few days, is two things. I invite you not to reconsider just sharing memes that make fun of these people, because nothing that's happening is funny at all. Like, it's dangerous. They're wanting to cause harm. They are intentionally like, here are the ways we are going to target immigrants. They're starting with that group. Thank you, Bishop Marianne Bud. And I think leaning into share resources, because there are a lot of organizations on the ground that have been preparing for this. Community organizers have not lived with the delusion that one person was going to save this country. It has always been us, right?
Right.
So throughout the show, we're going to be sharing those resources, also from where to get news, because right now all our social media platforms, they've been compromised. I mean, who I don't know. I never thought I was going on Facebook and have been like, oh, this is super secure, and somehow
No.
Who was doing that? So I mean, I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, so I would love to hear from the two of you. Like, what are the ways? Because here's the thing, that, like you were saying, DC, the outrage is the point to get us tired. Somebody said those executive orders or wish lists. Like, he can't do it all. He can't just write on a piece of paper. So let's not give him do not obey. Like, yeah, he's going to say and do a lot of things, and he wants us in a state of overwhelm and outrage so that we become
non-responsive,
and we don't want to. Yeah.
I mean, I think that we've been talking on The View for years and years about community organizing and about knowing where your community resources are. And so this is why, right? This is exactly why, we want to build on what you've already been doing, what we've already been doing, and not get sidetracked into the flavor of the day of the outrage of the day. Yes, we want to reach out and make sure, our trans folks are okay, and our undocumented folks are okay, and all of our folks are okay when these things happen, because there is a spiritual and emotional harm, no doubt, absolutely, 1,000%. And the succor that we're providing isn't to try and remedy that in that moment. It's to continue to build and organize ourselves so that we can be resilient in the face of all of that. Because I get it. I texted somebody the other day. I'm like, I just want to curl up and just, and there are days when I do, right? Like, I give myself that, because that's important too. I just want to curl up and pull the sheets over my head and
sheep therapy is real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do that, but that's not all I do, right? I don't do that forever, and I don't do it, without knowing, okay, this is what I need in this moment.
Mm.
And
Nicole Thibodeau, who is in Southern California, has a generator on and is watching us live. Thank you, Nicole. And
Yay.
yes, the fires are still raging in Southern California. And
Yep.
that's what we need our energy for, right? We need to resist, join orgs that are doing this, hide and take care of ourselves when we need to, and remember that there are things that actually have nothing to do with the government that we need to be responsive to, because that's just going to keep happening. Hello, climate change.
Yep.
Which the indigenous population has been telling us about for years before Al Gore, and then Al Gore even made a movie about it and was made fun of. So here we are. So one of the things we're going to do throughout the show, I'm producing the show. LJ's out today, so forgive me if I look even more unusually all over the place, because I am navigating Restream, which is an amazing platform and thankfully super easy to use, but it still means I'm going to be so we're going to be sharing some resources, and those of you watching, thank you. Please put in the chat resources that you have, or links to organizations. I'm going to start with Chris. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Mi Gente?
Yeah, Mi Gente is an organizing collective, US based, but has, reaches out across borders, that is centered in our autonomy and our ability to recognize what human rights are, what indigenous rights are, and that we don't, that the government that we elect and the government that is supposed to report to us doesn't get to tell us about our own autonomy as human beings, right? And so Mi Gente has been fabulous on the ground with, long before this, when the last time as Aisha terms him, the hate pumpkin was in office, but also during, Obama was our deporter in chief. Obama deported more people than, any of the presidents before or after him. So it's not just about, what administration is in office. And that isn't even about, like, people are like, oh, well, that's because he was in for two terms. No, proportionally, folks, proportionally still deported more people than anybody before or since. Okay. So, so Mi Gente is great about that arm of advocacy.
Yeah.
Of, what do you need to have together as an undocumented person? What kind of paperwork do you need to have together? What's your packet look like? What's your exit strategy look like? Who is going to know, if you don't check in after, more than a day or two, that something might be wrong? Like, they're really great about that. But the thing I like about Mi Gente is they also recognize and advocate for the fact that as Latinos, our only issues aren't immigration, right? Like, so many people are like, well, why did, Trump get more, Latina voters this time than last time? And why did blah, blah, blah? I'm like, because you freaking, first of all, think that we're a monolith. Like, you think Black people are a monolith and you think Asian people are a monolith. No, we're not. And the second thing is, you think that the only thing that we care about is immigration. And that could not be further from the truth, right? We care about healthcare. We care about children, education for our children. We care about being able to buy groceries. Like, we care about things that are human rights, right? And if a candidate were to come out and say those things, that we care about those things, you would see a Latino shift towards those values. So somebody was sharing on Facebook the other day a graphic about the huge amounts of Hispanic Catholic voters in Georgia who voted for Harris. And they were like, what is this about? Like, it didn't track with anything else. And I'm like, that's because the Catholic Church has been organizing in Latino communities in in Georgia for decades, and because they are not tied their faith to a political platform. They've tied their faith to values that promote human rights. Now, we can go into a lot of things about the Catholic Church. I'm culturally Catholic. I was raised Catholic amongst other religions. We can have that conversation. But the fact of the matter is that though that Catholic community is feeding the Latino community, is helping the Latino community access healthcare, is helping the Latino community make sure that they understand what their rights are and how to access those rights, right? And so we don't have to just be talking to the Latino community about immigration, right? We need to be talking to the Latino community like we're human beings. And that our human beingness means that we have a lot of the same concerns and a lot of the same needs as other communities, in addition to the real and very unique risk of deportation, right? So that is a unique and risk that I think folks don't recognize. Like, folks are like, well, we're going to have to get the Underground Railroad going. And I was like, Underground Railroad is amazing and was amazing. And it brought people from the South to the North, because in the North, they did not have the slavery laws. Where are the non-deportation laws in the US? Where are you going to Underground Railroad people to?
Right.
To save them from deportation.
Yeah, exactly. There's an app, and I apologize that I meant to look it up, that Mexico has created, and I don't know the name of it. That is, if you are in danger or you're a Mexican national, that you can alert your family if you are detained by federal officials. I just want to read Nicole's comment. Immigration has always been about maintaining a majority proportion of white folks in this country. That is all. And that's true in Europe as well. The rise of fascism is directly tied to mass migration due to wars in countries that, we helped start, and resources and climate change. So this humanity is at a quite an inflection point right now. And here's what's not going to help. What's not going to help, because I've now seen a couple of TikToks, because I am an avid TikTok user, even though it went away for 12 hours. A couple of people angry at those who didn't vote for Harris because of genocide. And I want to say to folks, I did vote for Harris, but I would never in 7 gazillion years be angry at anybody who didn't, because of a direct genocide that was paid for by this administration. So that is not helpful, because no one was wanting to vote in harm, and there was begging and pleading to stop the harm that's happening. So this is what, because guess who wins when we fight? When the left is at each other, it's fascism. That's who wins, right? So I think that's where we need to be mindful not to give in to this notion that being mad at each other, and it doesn't do anything. I understand that folks are scared, absolutely. And this, for indigenous people and enslaved Africans, this country has never not been fascist, ever. And folks have found ways to lean into thriving. And so let's remember that, like, since 1619, since 1492, since, the horror that European colonization has brought upon the Americas, there have been populations that have only lived under fascist rule, have only had their bodies regulated, regulated and controlled, or tried to, right? And so this is the first time for people with privilege. This is the first time for white people, who are raised to understand themselves to be white. And so this fear is something new to a certain segment of people, but it is not new to people who have been targeted this whole time, right?
No.
There was a trans person on TikTok who said, I lived through a genocide in the 80s when we had the first lady and the president deny AIDS and if anything, like, basically act like this was only going to impact one group of people. And because it's a sin, this is where, again, weaponized religion. So when you hear stories and bear witness to what people with target identities have been through, let's remember that also we find ways to thrive, because I'm not going to let people take our joy away, because we have to remember why we are here and why we are going to thrive. And I'm going to try to look up as we're talking the app, because that was pretty cool. The other I want to share Sister Song, which is a women of color led, I think they're based in Atlanta, a women of color led reproductive justice organization. Of course, there's the ACLU. I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I
And
could.
one thing I will say about the other app, Aisha, just while you're on there, because I don't want people to confuse it with the U.S. immigration app, which has been shut down.
I didn't know.
And yeah, so there was this policy that under Biden that basically said, yes, you have to wait at the Mexican border to cross, but we're going to give you this app, and there's about 100,000 people at the border waiting for 1,400 appointments per day that are available. And so what they did is they created an app, and every morning you would try, it was a lottery basically with this app. You would click the app to try and get one of those spots, one of those appointments within the next rolling 30 days, I think it was. So people were just basically camped out on the border waiting, churches were, serving these populations at the border, and it's the Mexican border, but the majority of the folks there were from Central and South America, waiting, basically pushed out from U.S. policy in their countries, which were driving violence in their countries. And now they're at our border saying, hey, your policies are killing us. So here I am at your border. You now need to let us in so that we can have a life. Totally reasonable. Anyways, so people had these appointments, and it was basically a kind of like a measure to not have people cross the desert, because crossing the desert kills people. Mm-hmm. And so it gave people a sense of hope. Okay, I have this app, I can try and get these appointments. It's gave them a reason to stay at the border and not try and cross the deserts and cross in ways that put them at even more risk from coyotes and just all of those kinds of things. So the day after the inauguration, I think on Tuesday, might have been Monday, I don't remember which day, Monday or Tuesday this week, the federal government at the administration's direction turned off that app. They basically turned off the app, and all of the appointments for the next 30 days disappeared. So if you had the appointment before noon on Tuesday, you still got in, you got to cross the border, and so that you could go to your immigration appointment. But anybody who's like, there was a person whose appointment was at 1:23 in the afternoon, and they didn't get to go because the app was turned off. Jesus. So we now have hundreds of thousands of people at the border who used to have a reason to stay at the border because they had this possibility of getting this appointment to be able to come into the country, who no longer have that, which means that we're going to have hundreds of thousands of people crossing the border now anyways, in ways that are very, very risky, and their journey has already been risky. But this is like, when we talk about direct harm, like this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the ability to literally flick a switch and put hundreds of thousands of people into harm's way. So,
can I just
we yes, politics is harm reduction, but it's like, this is a very clear example of what that harm is that we're trying to reduce.
I just feel like it's worth, like, so many of us get outraged and we try and lift this stuff up and show everybody and say, can't you see what's going on? And the people who are doing this don't care. They're not ashamed. They're not ashamed of their evil behavior. They're not ashamed of their cruelty. In fact, they're proud of that. So us simply lifting this up so everyone can see it is insufficient. Like, yes, we need to lift it up so people can see it, but don't think that that's going to change it.
Right.
Because they don't care.
Well, and that's why we're supporting the organizations on the ground,
Right.
like Mahente and
Right.
and the community organizers who've never stopped doing this work. Like you said,
Right.
Chris, under Obama, the deporter in chief. And I think that's the also important thing to say about politics is I liken the Democrats to an abused spouse in a domestic violence situation. It's like they've kind of lived under this delusion that if they just placate the cruelty of the Republicans just enough, that somehow they can convince them of something. And that's not true. So this is where, like, no one's coming to save us. We are it. We are going to lean into, we know this is cruel. This is like it's heart-wrenching. And then
That's the point.
that's the point. And so we can have ways to lean into again, support the organizations that are doing this, because they are there. They know what to do. They are, we don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. We are the way to, and you can easily, although I don't know how long that's going to be, is so tap into the organizations that you can find and stay in their loop, sign up for their newsletters. I shared a few sources of news that I have found reliable. Sky News, AP, Associated Press actually is where a lot of news organizations, and they're actually pretty solid. Reuters and BBC, not BBC America, BBC, like from the UK, are. And if anybody has any other ideas, please feel free to share them. So that, and one of the things I'm doing is being judicious about what I'm exposing myself to in terms of the news, so that I don't get into, because it's hard not to hear, like, I didn't know that I didn't know about the app. And then I feel myself I'm like, okay, I'm going to regulate my nervous system and, find out what are the ways I can be supportive of these programs. Oh, Al Jazeera. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, Al Jazeera.
Yeah,
yes.
because it's like you said, Aisha, like there's already people on the ground who know how to, provide water and food to folks that are crossing through the deserts. Like we don't have to recreate the wheel, right? We just need to go to Mi Gente and say, okay, how can I plug in if you're not already? Like there's no need to be a well-meaning individual who says, I'm just gonna, recreate all of this work and often take it from community organizers of color, right? And indigenous organizers who are doing this work. And then all of a sudden, some white person on TikTok is like, oh, did you know? And everybody's like, oh my God, how do I give you money to do this thing? Yeah.
And I want to lift up a couple of trans organizations that support trans folks around. Now, Pink Haven, is national. I'm also going to link to the Lavender Rights Project, which is here in Seattle, who do pro bono legal work and look for housing for especially trans folks of color.
Trevor Project.
The Trevor Project. Thank you. Yes. So that's what I'm doing right now. When you see me, I am putting up these so that we can, again, just make sure those organizations are I mean, even if you send them $5, so they have a list of or get on their website,
Yep.
and like ways to make sure they know that they are supported and loved, and we are. So the ways that we can plug in, because that's what we need to do, is focus our energy there. Because here's the thing, also, marches aren't going to. Somebody had a really good explanation about, again, TikTok, about marches, and they said in the civil rights era, and marches led to direct actions. So somebody said, when you just march for the sake of marching, it's a sad parade. It's a sad parade. Yeah. So I said, oh, I didn't. So putting that in perspective, and then the other thing that we can laugh, we have to laugh. Nicole Presley, UUA, shout out to Nicole, wrote, "Fascism is good PR. So let's be better PR. Let's make." And I'm like, oh my God, because everything's a story we tell. What stories are we buying into? And yes, the people with power are doing harm. So the story where the people in power right now are telling the story of fascism and wanting to cause harm. There are also the stories of resiliency, the stories of people who are coming together to protect those that are being targeted. And we just need to keep leaning. That is monumental, right? Get to know your community wherever you live.
Yep.
Make a group chat of, of the folks around you, and just get to know their name, even if you don't want to hang out and shoot the shit. Just get to know folks, know them by name. When I'm outside, I say hi to Antonio and Clyde and Randy and my neighbors. I mean, I say hello by name to people, and they know me by name. And that is not small. Here in the United States, depending on where you live, you may, and I'm also in a city, like I'm smack in the middle of the city. So we're all on top of each other here. So I know in rural communities, it's not exactly the same. I think that's what we need to do is lean into what's there. And yes, the links, I believe, so this is
the links do stay with the show.
Somebody's asking if the links will be there. Yes, the links will be here, so you can come back to them. That is something we want.
And Susanna said that their child watches Democracy Now! Regularly. Fantastic. Also a shout out for supporting youth and young adults of color in their organizing. It is super, super important. And like particularly youth in have really, a lot of times they don't, if I could finish my thought in my brain, I could get it out of my mouth. From what Aisha was saying about the sad parade. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Because like in the brown walkouts in Los Angeles, in LA Unified School District, which is huge, it's millions and millions of students. Those walkouts during the 70s, that was a walkout that fiscally impacted those schools because they get funding dependent on attendance and daily attendance. So those walkouts were bleeding the district of millions of dollars every day that those students didn't have their butts in chairs. Truancy laws aren't there because we want to have our kids being in school. They're there because we want to have our kids being in school, being indoctrinated into capitalism, but also because the schools get money based on butts in chairs. So the power that students hold in their communities that they don't know that they hold is huge. And so adults supporting those students in understanding that power and organizing that power is super, super important.
Thank you. 1,000%. I also want to go to the comment. Do you see? I'm going to put you on because you make a super important point that it is going to be important to talk about. So if you live in an area where the people around you voted for this administration, still get to know them. You don't have to be their friend, but just know their name. Right. Because ultimately the neighborhood I used to live in, Seattle, definitely predominantly voted for this administration. The neighborhood I'm in now, absolutely not. And it doesn't mean 100% voted the way I voted at all.
Right.
And the thing that is important to, and I think Luigi Mangione brought this to light. We're more connected, even if it's just about healthcare. That is one thing. Who saw that coming on, in this new timeline, like,
It's long. I expected it years ago.
well, I mean, that a CEO is going to be shot in Manhattan. Wow, you are prescient. I mean, like, this CEO being murdered, and then the rallying around the trust fund baby, who has all the resources, who said, I'm going to take this course of, and also I haven't heard about Luigi in the news, which is worrying me a little bit. Like, why haven't we heard about what's going on with him? But what we learned from that is everybody said, yep, here's what's problematic about my healthcare. Here's what's problematic about my healthcare. So I am not under any delusion that we're going to change anyone's mind. I've never been in that space. However, what we can do is say, look, we can agree this is broken. This system, this experiment that is the current United States is broken. And Black and brown people aren't going anywhere. So stop with we're going to get rid of DEI. You can get rid of all the letters you want to get rid of. No one's getting, that's all. It's PR. It's like, it is PR. This is the part of PR that is saying we're going to make this go away, and therefore something's going to happen. And all that's going to happen is you give into a story that doesn't match the reality of most people. And so again, like, lean into the organizations where we are living into our better selves, and support youth organizing, support the arts. My God, what are we doing this for if we don't have the arts, if we don't have poetry slams? The thing that has been remarkable in Seattle is the opportunity for youth to be in just a lot of arts, and a lot of, like, accessible arts. I mean, they pay attention to arts in school, and then, although our Board of Education is super problematic right now, so I don't want to talk about Seattle schools, but find ways to lean into remembering the arts too, because that is what makes being human joyful, is the ability to create beauty, tell stories, navigate what it means to be human, good and bad. And let's not forget the arts. Where was I that somebody was saying that we forget the arts and we don't lift up the arts? So let's lift up the arts. Let's not forget.
The arts are the ones that have been telling us this.
Yes.
The arts are always the ones, the artists and the arts community are always the ones who are, for lack of a better term, the canary in the coal mine, right? They're the ones who recognize the icky trends, right? Like Mapplethorpe, right? Right? He's the first artist in my memory that got really smacked down hard for public stances, right? In my memory, right? And when people found out that it was okay to do that to him, then other censorship began to happen.
Tell us a little more about Mapplethorpe, because I'm pretty sure most people won't know.
Oh, good. That's because I'm old. Okay, Mapplethorpe. Robert Mapplethorpe was a photographer artist who worked in the gay community in the 80s and 90s. Did some spectacular photography, very provocative. Some of it was involved the gay male leather scene. Some of it involved naked bodies. So be careful if you want to go like digging around on Google, because you're gonna, if you're offended by body parts, then you probably ought not to go. But if you're offended by body parts, why are you even here? Like, that just seems like it wouldn't fit in our demographic, but whatever. Anyway, so but he, like, the thing that the lightning rod for him was he had made a photograph, and I don't remember if it was black and white or not, of a crucifix immersed in a bathtub filled with urine. And it was called Piss Christ. And it was a really profound statement against the work of the Catholic Church at that time to deny education and condoms and what's that word you just said? Something harm reduction stuff to the gay male communities, right? Like these are the eras of Boston's Cardinal Bernard Law, who thought that it was God's vengeance that the gay men died, and that was just fine with him. So he had some pretty strong feelings because all his friends were dying, right? And that'll do that to you. And he served as something of a lightning rod that got the National Endowment for the Arts. Like suddenly Jesse Helms was all over them with Senator Jesse Helms, former Senator Jesse Helms from North Carolina, who wanted to defund the National Endowment for the Arts because they gave him a grant for some of his work. Because he didn't say he determined that was not art, because Jesse Helms was certainly an authority on that. But it is, if we think about Keith Haring, who was an artist around the same time, who did those images we see now, all over the place of these sort of not quite stick figures. I'm not sure how to describe them, but for National Coming Out Day, right? We see a lot of those images there. And he was another one who got criticized and got examined, scrutinized, that's the word I'm looking for, and attacked for the art and the messages they were doing in support of gay men who were all fucking dying. All right, 1246, and I was the one that did it.
I mean, and also this is why we need to go to drag brunches. Go to every drag brunch. If you have one near you, go. Support the drag community. Support
the drag community. The drag and trans community have been the ones who have taken brutality on the chin for fucking ever. And don't forget that it was the trans women of color who held back the police at Stonewall.
That's right.
By forming, which just makes my heart sing, a line of drag queens, high-kicking drag queens like they were right out of Siegfried's Follies, because the last thing you want to get hit in the face with is a platform shoe attached to the end of a 6-foot-tall drag queen.
Hello.
Right? Can you imagine the like the high kicking stuff? Like no, the horses will back up from that shit. They're like, nope, not going there.
And all our oppressions are linked, and this is why we have to work together. It is none of us are free until all of us are free. Right. None of us are free until all of us are free.
Right. And those of us who can pass, because now somehow I can pass for something, are obligated to use our privilege to undo that bullshit.
That's right.
Right? When I was perceived simply as the super butch lesbian, I was often one of the easy targets. Right? Me and the campy gay men. Right? Because we couldn't hide.
Right.
We couldn't hide. We couldn't like honestly, gay men look better in dresses than I ever did. Right? It's just the truth. It's just the ugly truth. And so there was no way for me to hide. And so a group of people at a pride parade, it was me and the drag queens, the butch lesbians and the drag queens that always got the violence first.
Wow. So sorry.
And so keep that in mind as we, like you say, do our marches and then go home and, watch TV. Right?
Or not do our marches and find other ways. Go to a drag brunch.
Support, right. No, but what I'm saying is there has to be action.
Oh,
There has to be
right.
action. You have to do something like useful with that energy other than wave flags around.
Well, and it has to be creative now because they are itching. There is a group of people who are armed who are itching to cause violence. So the creativity of moving forward right now is paramount. Like so there's right now on Facebook, and I'm not going to be able to find it in 10 minutes, but an action going around that you can get a dummy email, and you can give your thoughts to, is it NASA? So they're saying, like, because they're getting rid of DEI because, so somebody suggested sending ethnic recipes and the reasons why you love DEI. Like, let's get creative. Let's crash their website. Like, let's do things that are right now, the actions moving forward in the year 2025 are not going to look the way, because they want folks now to stop traffic so that way they can get shot. They get an excuse to shoot people. I mean, let's be clear what we're dealing with here. So my thing, and I also trust community organizers to take the action they need. But for me, it's like, I'm also paying attention to what are the creative ways. Listen, TikTok wasn't targeted because it was benign. Let's be clear. TikTok was not targeted because it was just some fun app that nobody gave a shit about. And the person who supposedly saved it, and I put that in quotes, the reason why it even got on his radar in 2020, because it was his idea to ban it in the first place, was because it was TikTok that got free tickets, and they thought there were thousands and thousands of people that were going to come to his rally. Yep. And they found out it was like teenagers in Korea that were like, hey, yeah, funny and incredibly effective. The reason why Palestine, the world took up the Palestinian cause, is TikTok, is that they were filming their own fucking genocide. Yep. And so, there are a lot more creative ways that we will navigate staying connected. I'm not getting off Facebook. Let me just give that spiel for real quick. I'm not getting off Facebook. There is a way to turn off all the data collection, and it works. So they're making, and now I'm getting ads that don't make any sense, because I'm like, oh, that's how they were doing it. They were following every move on every other website I joined. So I own being incredibly ignorant. I'm full on Gen X. So now I turn that off. But what I'm doing is being super intentional about what I post. And so I would invite everybody. You obviously, if you want to leave. I'm not gonna. But I think we need. Feminista Jones said, think about this idea that they want us to get off all of this, the things that are keeping us connected.
Right, and not just connected, but employed. Right, like that's the other thing, is that a bunch of people are on TikTok making a living. A living without going to, an 8-to-5 soul-sucking job, and are like, shit, I can have my community support me in saying the things that I need to say, and not having to go, into some capitalistic hellscape in order to earn a living. And don't get me wrong, like I'm full on, so I eat at McDonald's. I'm a full on supporter of Target. Like there are places that people are working that I am super glad that they are there, and that there's a way for them to make a living.
Demonized or demonetized?
I'm also in full support of folks that are just like, I'm going to go find a different way. And that is scary to the establishment. So of course they're looking at TikTok and going, oh my God, what's going on? These people are,
how do we stifle this?
Yeah. How do we, what do we
in
do?
the front row, sit down,
Facebook,
stop talking.
I'm a Facebook person. My community is built on Facebook. And if people really feel like their leaving Facebook is going to somehow build community, that they have a different idea of ways in which to build that same community that they have, awesome. I don't see it. And so I'm where my community is. I'm where the folks that need our ministry, like, let's also talk about that as Unitarian Universalists. Like our ministry, our theology, our faith needs our voice everywhere. Everywhere. So you want to go somewhere else, but that doesn't mean you have to leave here. And the other thing I will say about this is a large part of my ministry is direct giving, fundraising. And I do that on Facebook. And I do that for people of color to move resources into the hands of people of color. And so we need people to be in these spaces in order to do that. And, I did a post, I can't remember if it was in December. I think it was in December, that mutual aid and direct giving fundraising is in the crapper. It is awful right now. I cannot tell you the number of folks that are in my DMs who move resources in our communities, in our Facebook and social media communities, who are like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, you are not the only one. You are not the only one. We are not moving resources the way we used to. And that's a direct causal link to the fear that is being engendered in our community because of the politics that are out there. And we just have to say to people, the same people that you were helping 2 months ago still need your help. They still need food on their table. They still need to be able to go to the doctor. They still need our help. And you contracting into this, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen, I better keep all my resources to myself because I don't know, is not helping anybody.
Right. This is like that thing that Aisha and I have talked about before. When you panic, you often do the dumbest thing, the least helpful thing, right? When you're on the ladder and it starts to slide, you will grab the sharp thing on your way down, trying to stop your fall, even if it will hurt you, right? Like I was on a ladder, and the ladder started to fall, and I grabbed the sharp stuff and ended up breaking my arm, and it was just an ugly thing. But what we need when our limbic system does that to us, we need to teach ourselves how to recognize that as a limbic response and do whatever you can internally to diffuse that.
Oh, stay hydrated, learn how to regulate. Yes.
Stay hydrated, eat healthy food or chocolate, whatever works, right? Yeah. Like be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Don't give yourself a hard time for not doing enough, right? Because that's counterproductive. But when your limbic system does that shit, there's like brain chemistry things that you need to do to get yourself to a place that is more alive. And more relational.
And learning to recognize it is the first step. Like learning to recognize when you're activated into that is super important. When we go out, Isha and I, do consulting gigs, and when we go out, I know people get tired of me because I consult with organizations usually over at least 18 months. And by the middle of it, they're so tired of me asking, well, how did that exercise feel to you? And people are like, well, I thought that it was blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that wasn't the question. The question was, how did it feel to you?
In your body.
What are your feeling words? And how did it feel to you? How did it feel in your body? How did it feel in your emotions? How did it feel? I don't care what you think about the exercise. I want to know how you feel, because you have to know when shit is going on here in order to change your response. If you can't recognize when this all gets activated, then your ability to change your response to that is diminished. And so what does it feel like to you when you get activated?
Well, and then you react and not respond, right? So when you're it's information, because I know for me, I also have learned more as I'm getting older, times when I don't respond. Like I am a lot less reactive than even 5 years ago. because it's not like even being judicious with that. So we have 1 minute left. What do we want to let folks know? Yeah, keep coming to the View. We will be here to support each other for sure.
You're not alone.
Absolutely.
You're not alone.
Keep coming to the View. Check out the links that we have for you in the chat, and remember to love up on each other and come to worship. Worship is a place where joy can be found and community can be found. Find your faith community, whatever that means to you. It could be the folks at the coffee shop. You want to gather people together in the coffee shop to talk, do that. But find your community, find your sustaining joy.
Yes, and I use the Insight app, Insight Timer app as well for guided meditations. It's a lot cheaper than the Calm app, just to let you know. It's like eons cheaper. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you all. I don't know that I could find, I forgot how to do the closing video. I'm gonna wait. I think
that's okay. We could just say bye.
We could just say bye. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye with that. I don't know where it is. I can do the hello video again, I guess. Okay, y'all are wonderful.
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Have a
Hopefully it'll be warmer.
Hopefully.